After 5 years of marriage, my husband's mistress got pregnant, but instead of throwing a tantrum like I used to, I went to her rundown rental apartment and brought her home with me. She was 10 years younger than me, with big eyes and a high nose bridge. Looking just like me when I was 20, she clutched her belly cautiously and asked me, "Sister, I'll give birth to this child and leave. I won't ask for anything, okay?" I gently stroked her hair and thought, "Don't be scared. I'll help you take my place as soon as possible. After all, if I wait any longer, the man I've been eyeing will leave the country." Chapter 1. When someone with ill intent handed me the news of Luna's pregnancy, she was already 3 months along. It wasn't that Oscar deliberately wanted to humiliate me, it's just that 3 months ago, on my birthday, we had a terrible argument. I said something cruel, and in a fit of anger, he stormed out. He must have ended up with that girl who, in order to earn money to treat her mother's illness, had no choice but to sell herself. I don't know what chaos unfolded that night, but the next day, I saw the shirt Oscar had taken off. There were faint traces of blood at the hem. This wasn't the first stand-in he had found outside. I didn't take it seriously, so I had no idea the girl would get pregnant. The car made its way deep into the alleys of the urban village, and the farther we drove, the more my brows furrowed. I couldn't help but ask, did Mr. Oscar not buy her a place to live? Oliver glanced at me silently. He did. She didn't want it. That did remind me a bit of my younger self. When we reached the building, I frowned even deeper. The buildings were tightly packed together, barely letting any sunlight in. The girl lived on the 8th floor, and the staircase was so narrow that even I, who frequents the gym, was panting by the time we climbed it. I hadn't smelled this kind of musty, suffocating air in a long time. It was oddly familiar. Apartment 801, a worn green door. When I knocked, a long-haired girl in a white dress opened it. She wasn't wearing makeup, but she was still very pretty. Her big, round eyes looked like a frightened deer's. She turned pale the moment she saw me. Clearly, she knew who I was. She instinctively took a step back. "Madam," I responded with a calm mem. "Hello." That made her tremble even more. "Won't you invite me in?" Luna froze for a moment, then stepped aside to let me in. It was a very tiny one-bedroom apartment, so small that my bathroom at home was larger than the whole place. But it was warmly decorated, a lace cover over the sofa, a small TV, handmade trinkets on the table, and a photo of Oscar. Oscar at 20, standing on a mountaintop, full of youthful pride. I had taken that photo. I thought I had lost it. Turns out, he brought it here. Luna followed my gaze and quickly covered the photo. Sorry. Oscar made me put it there. After 10 years with Oscar, I knew exactly what he was thinking. He saw in Luna a face that was 80% similar to mine, a temperament that mirrored mine halfway. It reminded him of the past. Who knows why he's so fixated? I smiled slightly and sat on the couch. "You're pregnant?" Luna was stunned. Fear quickly rose in her eyes. "Yes, but I didn't mean to. I really didn't know it would happen. I'm sorry. Madam, I didn't mean to ruin your relationship. Please don't hate me. I'll get rid of the baby. I'll leave. Just please, don't go after my sick mother." Tears rolled down her cheeks like pearls from a broken string, pitiful and heartbreaking. I walked over and gently touched her face. So soft, so smooth. "Why are you crying? I never said I'd make you get an abortion." Chapter 2. I brought Luna back home. On the way back, Oliver hesitated to speak. "Madam, this might not be a good idea. Shouldn't you talk to Sir first? Otherwise, when he comes back from his business trip in a few days, he might get angry." "He won't. Or rather, he wouldn't dare." The car drove through the towering gates, past the vast garden, and stopped at the main entrance. Luna was so frightened. She clutched her belly and burst into confused tears like a terrified chick. "Madam, I beg you, please let me go. My mother is in the final stage of kidney failure and still waiting for me to raise money for her treatment. If it weren't for the money, I would have never approached Oscar. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong." She cried incoherently, and I had no choice but to wipe her tears again. "Shoo, don't be scared. I already told you I won't hurt you." Compared to the 13 arrogant and scheming mistresses Oscar had in the past, she was actually my favorite. So I brought her back, through the long corridor, then took an internal shuttle to the very back of the estate. There stood a traditional wooden pavilion, by a lotus pond, where a woman was sitting with her eyes closed, resting. I led Luna over. Mom. The woman slowly opened her eyes. She looked at me, her deep gaze holding a faint, almost undetectable glint. She's the one? Have you checked? Yes. It's a boy. Good. Take good care of her. I will. After that, I lowered my gaze and led Luna out quietly. By then, Luna had stopped crying. She looked at me timidly. Madam, why did you bring me here? Chapter 3. I genuinely liked this little girl. And for once, I was patient and gentle as I coaxed her. I brought you here to walk the proper path. You're already pregnant. It's not something we should keep hidden, Luna cautiously said. I told you. I won't try to take Mr. Oscar from you. I interrupted her with a smile. Don't say that. Let's eat first. It was obvious Oscar had never taken Luna anywhere decent on a date. That night, even the simplest 15-dish dinner left her stuffed. She clung to my fingers like a little bunny. Madam, that ham and bird's nest soup was so delicious. And the eggplant dish, it's different from what I've had before. I watched her hopping around with joy, occasionally reminding her to be careful. Luna laughed and laughed, then suddenly looked a little embarrassed. Sorry. I grew up poor. I've never seen much of the world, so I get excited over small things. I smiled and shook my head, reaching out to pat her on the head. Do you like it? This kind of life? Luna nodded. I like it. Good. I coaxed her back to her room, got her to shower, and go to bed. After the bedroom light was turned off and the room went dark, I stood in the garden, watching the stillness around me, sipping the familiar silence like tea. The housekeeper came over with a cigarette and a lighter, showing the same hesitant expression Oliver had earlier. Madam, must you really do this? I don't think Sir truly likes this girl. She's only young in terms of education or looks. She can't compare to you. So what? I'm still stuck here, year after year, like some forgotten monk sweeping floors, worn down to despair. Perhaps I'd been triggered by Luna during the day, because that night, for the first time in a long while, I thought of the past. Back then, I was so bright and radiant. I had no idea what hardship meant. Though my family was poor and lived off farming, my parents loved each other dearly and spoke to each other with respect. I wasn't a top student, but my grades were good enough to get into the best university in South City. So when the 20-year-old me met the 20-year-old Oscar, who was basically a campus legend, I didn't feel intimidated or unworthy of him at all. While everyone else chased after him, I was more focused on figuring out what job I wanted after graduation. Maybe it was this unexpected attitude that caught his attention. Oscar fell in love with me. He suffered a lot trying to win me over. I had no interest in money and didn't care for expensive gifts. So Oscar learned woodworking and made little carved cats to amuse me. I believed in equality in relationships and disliked fancy Western meals. So Oscar learned to cook for me and burned his hands with blisters. To marry me, he fought his family with everything he had. I didn't even know what exactly he went through, only that he disappeared for 3 months. And when he returned, he was thin and hollow-eyed, saying, Diana, I can finally marry you. He gave me a wedding that stunned the whole of Harbor City. Our banquet made front-page headlines for 3 days straight, and I truly thought we would love each other forever. Chapter 4. In truth, the differences between us had started long ago. His family drove more than a dozen luxury cars to my rural hometown, creating a traffic jam that stretched for miles. My parents, dark-skinned and modest, trembled in fear, thinking someone had come to collect a debt. When they heard it was a marriage proposal, they were overjoyed. My dad brought out his prized cigarettes and handed them to Oscar. My mom opened the precious tea she'd been reluctant to drink. Oscar's expression turned a bit awkward. Fortunately, he was well-mannered. He casually changed the topic. But I, sitting beside him, keenly noticed the slight furrow of his brow. Even when he left that day, Oscar never smoked a single cigarette from my dad. And those 10+ cups of golden tea? Not one sip was taken by anyone from his side. At the time, I just thought, some things are inherently different and don't need to be forced. I didn't realize then that this was a sign of a bigger truth. Oscar and I were on two entirely separate paths. As time passed and the initial passion faded, our differences in values began to tear small cracks into our relationship. When the first mistress appeared, it felt like the sky was falling. That woman couldn't even properly be called a mistress. Oscar had gone out with his rich friends. They were all second-generation elites, unmarried, each with a hostess on their arm. Oscar sat alone at first. Someone noticed and casually pulled over a busted girl for him. Oscar was going to refuse, but his gaze lingered and stopped. Drunk but not wasted, they both silently slipped into the restroom. After a few grunts, he handed her tissues to wipe her mouth, then stuffed 10,000 yuan into her pocket. At that time, I was home stewing in anger about Oscar coming home late again. When someone sent me a photo out of kindness, I rushed to the bar, just in time to see Oscar walking out of the bathroom. That time, we had a massive fight. I scratched his face in front of all his friends. A reporter caught it and it ended up in the gossip pages. Oscar paid to have the story buried and didn't come home for a month. Eventually, he relented and came back to apologize. It was probably his first time apologizing to someone in his own home. His expression was subtle, and he tried his best to coax me. I cried over and over again. The next day, my mother-in-law, who had never liked me, found out. She gave me a cold glance and simply said, "Handle yourself wisely." I didn't understand it then, not until the second, third, 13th mistress appeared. Every time, I cried. Every time, I made a scene. The 13th one, coincidentally, I discovered the day before my birthday. I nearly collapsed from the rage. The 14th was Luna, but this time, I didn't cry. I even brought her home. Oscar, who had been away on a long business trip, finally caught wind of what happened and rushed back in a panic. Chapter 5. When Oscar arrived, it was already nighttime. Luna and I had finished dinner. We were both in our pajamas, leaning on the sofa watching TV. Luna was truly like a child. She actually liked Tom and Jerry. Hugging a bowl of fruit, she giggled and said to me, "Sister, look at that cat. It's so stupid. It's been bullied so many times and still doesn't know how to dodge." Yes, so stupid, falling for the same trick again and again. I smiled along with her. When I looked up, I met Oscar's cold, shadowed eyes. It had been so long since I had really looked at him, and just as long since he had looked at me. Now that I finally did, I noticed faint wrinkles forming at the corners of his eyes. He frowned and glared at Luna. "Who told you you could come in here? Get out." The person in my arms flinched in fright. I shot back at him. "What are you yelling for? Be careful not to scare the child." "Oscar," he gritted his teeth. "Who said that child is mine? And even if she is pregnant, she can get an abortion. There's no need to give birth." The killing tone in his voice made Luna tremble violently. I reached over to gently pat her back, signaling her to go to bed first. Luna hesitated, clutching at my sleeve in fear. "It's fine. He doesn't bite. He's just talking. Go to bed. Pregnant women should sleep early." Only then did Luna leave, taking a few steps, turning back every time. Her clinginess made Oscar laugh out of sheer frustration. "You really don't care anymore, do you? So magnanimous now. Huh? Diana, should I applaud you?" I smiled calmly. "Oscar, you kept finding woman after woman. Wasn't it all just to test my limits? I know this circle. Your friends, your business partners, even your father and uncles, they all have stable wives at home and colorful flags waving outside. You used 13 women to grind down my pride, just so you could reach this point. I admit it, you've won. Honestly, I didn't understand at first. Before marriage, his heart and eyes were full of me. He would defy the entire world for me. How did that man suddenly turn into this stranger? Until the day before my birthday, Oscar gave me a slap in the face. Literally, a slap that woke me up completely. So when I spoke softly now, Oscar was genuinely shocked. He pressed his lips together, his gaze flickering uncertainly. 3 months ago, you were threatening to slit your wrists, and now you say you've figured it out. I have. I said, "Diana, tell me the truth." "This is the truth." Oscar took a deep breath. "Fine. Great. Then I'll give you what you want, tonight. I'll sleep with her." I nodded. "Sure, but remember to be gentle. The doctor said her pregnancy's stable, so intercourse is allowed in moderation. Oscar turned and stormed out, the gust of cold wind following behind him. I looked quietly out the window. The weather had changed. Chapter 6. Oscar moved back into the villa. Ever since I blew up over his 8th mistress, Oscar, annoyed by my drama, had moved out. Other than the 1st, 15th, and holidays, I was left alone in this big, empty house. His face wash and shaving cream had long since expired. I had the housekeeper do a last-minute shopping run, so I wrote up a list and showed it to Oscar. He was in the middle of preparing formula for Luna, scooping spoon after spoon into the cup. It gave me a headache just watching. That's too much. It won't dissolve properly. Oscar shot me a look. It'll dissolve just fine. Fine. Whatever. I handled all the chores, from daily housekeeping to arranging a kidney transplant for Luna's mother. Finally, just as I sat down, my phone buzzed with a notification. 1 million yuan has been deposited into your account. I didn't cry or impulsively transfer it back like I used to. Instead, I called my assistant. Go check if that pink diamond ring from last time is still available. I want to buy it. Oh, and after buying it, have all the previous ones sent to the overseas bank vault. Paris. Yes, you handle the details. Once I got the reply, I was just about to eat when Oscar came downstairs with Luna in his arms. His face was still dark. You got something going on today? There's an award ceremony at the university. Oh, more of that funding students with your girlfriend's charity thing? Doing a good deed a day. Oscar fell silent. After a pause, he tugged Luna closer. I'm taking her out to buy some clothes later. You really don't pay attention. The weather's cooled, and she's still dressed so lightly. If you want to play the saint, then take care of Luna properly during her postpartum period. Once the kid's born, I'll even have him call you mom. His sarcasm was biting, and Luna sat there, visibly uncomfortable, sneaking pitiful glances at me. Her entire face screamed, I'm not. I didn't. This man is talking nonsense. I was too tired to even meet her eyes, watching silently as he held her by the waist and walked out of the house. At 11, I drove to Nanzhou University, the most prestigious school in Hong Kong City. The place was packed, and the moment I arrived, a crowd rushed over. I shook hands with the school leaders, one by one. Today was Nanzhou's annual awards ceremony. Dozens of awards had already been handed out. Finally, it was time for the last one, Student of the Year. When the host read the name, I squinted slightly. Gabriel. He was a legend on campus. Top of every entrance exam, a string of prestigious awards in computer science at a young age. Not only did he look like a manga character, with a cold personality to match, but he also carried the underprivileged student aura, beautiful, talented, and modest. Even when the principal announced the prize money, Gabriel didn't flinch until he saw me, walking up to the stage with the trophy. His eyes lifted, a subtle spark flickering in them, as he spoke in a deep, steady voice. Sister, I smiled, handed him the trophy, and gently squeezed his palm. I'm here. Chapter 7. I first met Gabriel on a rainy night 3 months ago. After a huge fight with Oscar, he stormed off to find Luna, and I grabbed my purse and stormed out too. I thought, since he's going off the rails, I might as well do the same. I was going to find myself a handsome boy toy, hot body, pretty face, just to piss Oscar off. Drunk and dizzy, I stumbled out of the bar and mistook Gabriel, who had just finished a part-time job and was heading home, for a male escort. I latched onto him and refused to let go. I must have looked pretty pitiful, crying my heart out, otherwise he wouldn't have skipped calling the cops and actually carried me home after I passed out. When I woke up the next morning, I found 2 dishes and a soup on the table, and that unfamiliar, cold-faced boy sitting by the desk. For the first time in forever, I actually felt embarrassed and flustered. But that didn't last long. Gabriel turned to look at me and said, Senior, he continued. I'm a student from X middle school. I just started 7th grade. I once saw you give a motivational speech at an award ceremony. I've looked up to you ever since. Dear God, back then I was this radiant, inspirational poor student full of positivity. And now, my junior just caught me hitting rock bottom. How humiliating is that? Not knowing how to salvage my dignity, I gave up trying and just sat down to eat. Day by day, as we spent more time together, I started liking Gabriel more and more. He's the type who's not just good-looking, but brilliant and disciplined. His family's poor, his dad is sick and can't work, and his mom farms but barely makes anything. Even the family's living and medical expenses fall on his shoulders. Gabriel juggles 2 part-time jobs and still manages to rank top in class. It's not easy. After getting to know him, I tried to give him some financial help. Gabriel refused at first. I told him not to be so uptight. I said, "Pride won't put food on the table. Life already slapped me a few times and paid me some hush money. If I spend it on you, at least I'm doing a good deed." Gabriel stopped arguing. Every time I showed up at his place in a foul mood, he'd quietly cook for me. Oscar used to drown in soft affection, now it's my turn. And I must say, it feels pretty damn good. Though, sometimes things do blow up in your face. When I got home from the school ceremony, it was already past dinner. Oscar was still sitting at the table, and Luna sat beside him, pale and sluggish. I rushed over in panic. "What happened?" Luna gave a weak smile. "I'm just too hungry. I got low blood sugar." "Then why didn't you eat?" She looked like she wanted to speak but didn't dare. I turned to Oscar and saw his face full of rage. With a smack, he threw his phone on the table. On the screen was a photo of me and Gabriel from the ceremony. Our eyes met in the picture, both with faint smiles. Oscar's voice was ice cold. "Who the hell is this guy? Are you seriously cheating on me?" I gestured for Luna to go ahead and eat. Then I met his gaze head on, lips curling into a smile. "Didn't you tell me to go find another man?" Chapter 8. To be honest, I had almost forgotten those words. Because at the time, I was too heartbroken. My brain must have activated some kind of self-defense mechanism. When I went to catch Oscar with his 13th mistress, they were sitting in a group, drinking and chatting. Oscar had a half-naked woman in his arms. She looked about 50% like me, and he said impatiently, "I'm starting to really hate Diana." Sitting next to him was the same man who'd once introduced him to that bar girl, a guy named Justin. Upon hearing this, Justin howled with laughter. "Oh, bro. Finally, you've come to your senses. I've been saying all along, she's useless. Her parents are dirt farmers. You can smell that poverty from 8 meters away. If she hadn't married into your family, she would have never lived a good life. In families like ours, wives know their place. How come she's the only one throwing tantrums every day? Smashing your pride into the floor? You're the heir to the family. You're the general manager of the whole group. Flirting and keeping a couple of women is normal. Man, why the hell do you keep apologizing to her? Does she even deserve it?" As Oscar listened, his tone grew colder. He scoffed. "Don't even mention her parents. They really can't make a proper appearance. Last time they came, they brought a bunch of chickens and ducks and turned the house into a wet market. Every time I talk to them, my scalp goes numb. I'm terrified of saying something that might hurt their precious pride. But honestly, I couldn't care less about when their cabbages are ready to harvest or whether their peanuts grew well. All that farm talk is nonsense to me. We've been married for years. I've given Diana so much money, yet she's never thought to help her parents dress better, raise their status a little. Every time they visit, people think they're beggars. It's humiliating." Oscar took a deep breath. My father was right. When two people come from different worlds, that kind of love always ends in tragedy. I stood there not far away, listening to him finish, half of my body completely numb. I've never been materialistic. I hardly ever touched the money Oscar gave me. I never imagined that in his heart I was seen this way. 1,000 thoughts flashed through my mind. Should I rush up and kill him to reclaim my pride? Or just go home, file for divorce, and walk away with my dignity? Or maybe play the same game. After all, I've got plenty of money now, if he can be shameless. So can I. As I was thinking, Justin tilted his head, spat, and suddenly our eyes met. He jumped up, startled, and nudged Oscar. Oscar turned around, and when he saw me, his face froze. Maybe in that moment, he was as lost as I was. Neither of us knew what to do. Finally, he walked toward me. I did what any woman in my position would do. I slapped him hard across the face. Oscar laughed from pure rage, and that was my fatal mistake. I didn't realize my position. Oscar was surrounded by a crowd of his so-called brothers, all smirking, waiting for a show. His face turned from white to purple, then blue, and finally, he let out a cold snort. What? Did I say anything wrong? Your parents aren't poor? We aren't mismatched? Or, have you not humiliated me over and over again? Honestly, Diana, there's something I've wanted to say for a long time. He leaned closer, his words sharp as knives. Diana, you really don't know what's good for you. Look at yourself. Neither your looks nor your background are anything special. If it weren't for me indulging you, what right would you have to strut around Hong Kong City like a queen, living such a luxurious life? Chapter 9. My head buzzed violently, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. My throat was tight as I choked out. Oscar, you said you'd be good to me. He cut me off. Good to you? Haven't I been good enough? Look at the food you eat, the clothes you wear, everything you use is paid for by my family. I made you live like royalty, gave your parents a life they never dreamed of. What the hell are you still unhappy about? These past few years, you've complained about everything. This is wrong. That is wrong, and you refuse to have a child. Do you know how much my mother resents you in private? Do you know my father's mistress is pregnant with their second child? Do you see my mother making a scene about it? If you keep throwing tantrums and acting like a spoiled child, making this house a war zone every day, then we're done. Diana! I'm telling you, my family wants a respectable daughter-in-law, not some jealous drama queen. If you can handle that, fine. If not, get out. I couldn't even cry anymore. My voice came out dry and hoarse. Then what about my heart? Oscar? He cursed. Then go play around too. Go find yourself a man. I won't blame you. I won't divorce you. All right? For God's sake. You're impossible. That night, he went straight to Mistress Number 13's place. He even sent me a picture of their bed, proudly lit up and mocking. I sat numbly in our bedroom, listening to the faint sound of birds outside in the quiet night. And suddenly, I remembered my mother-in-law's words, behave yourself. Right. How could I have been so blind before? Everything I had was granted by Oscar's charity. Between us, there was never equality, not in the eyes of the world, not even in his heart. Oscar's love for me was like foam on water, gone with the slightest breeze. I sat there all night, motionless. By morning, I had a fever. It happened to be my birthday. Oscar came home that evening, pretending as if nothing had happened. He spoke softly, as if the cruel man from last night had never existed. After dinner and a shower, he tried to take off my clothes. I'd spent the whole day brainwashing myself, telling myself to be the perfect socialite wife, the dutiful ornament of a rich man's home. But when I saw the marks that another woman had left on his body, I couldn't hold it in. I vomited. Right there, all over his lower body. His face went dark as stone. When he realized what my reaction meant, he coldly dressed and left without a word. I sat for a long time, realizing I couldn't even be a good tool anymore. Something in my mind snapped. I went to the bathroom and slit my wrists. By pure chance, Oscar had forgotten his phone and came back. He found me bleeding, and without a flicker of emotion, called emergency services. He transferred me some money, glanced down at me with cold indifference, and said, "Go find yourself a male model to vent with. Diana, I won't blame you. And stop with this dying for love nonsense. It's disgusting." Chapter 10. I calmly said the words, and Oscar's expression instantly changed. He took a deep breath and growled, "I told you to find a male model, not a male student." I smiled. Why? Scared the student has better skills than you, and I might fall for him instead? Bullshit. I'm afraid you'll get into trouble. Oh, I think it's better than a model. Unlike you, I don't sleep with everything that moves. I'm careful, not looking to catch a disease. Oscar clenched his jaw. So, you slept with him? Sure did. That sentence seemed to fry his nerves. He grabbed the dishes off the table and smashed them to the floor, one after another. Then he stormed over, grabbed my chin, and slammed me against the wall. He leaned in, our noses barely an inch apart. We hadn't been this close in ages, and yet all I felt was disgust. I fought the urge to gag and kept laughing. Oh, isn't this what your family does? Why the tantrum now? Oscar, you're pathetic. You dish it out but can't take it. What a loser. Oscar stared at me, his eyes suddenly turned red. For the first time in so long, he choked up. Don't talk like that. Diana, don't look at me like that. Yell at me, will you? Or curse me out. Hit me. Let's fight. Come on. He seemed flustered, though I couldn't tell what exactly he was panicking about. I gently patted his shoulder. What are you saying? How could I hit my dear husband? We agreed, didn't we? Do your thing. I'll do mine. No interference. Luna's a good kid. Your mom's seen her. She likes her. We've already informed your dad. He said he'll give the baby some shares in the future. Your stepmom's about to have her second kid, right? Well, Luna's young. Once she finishes this pregnancy and recovers, maybe she can pop out another one in a few months. Oscar said nothing. He just held onto my arm, opened his mouth, and closed it again, wanting to speak, failing to speak. He was exhausting. I pushed him away and went upstairs. Late that night, the bedroom door opened. Oscar slipped into the big bed, half of which had been empty for a long time. He lay there, watching me sleep peacefully, and all night long, his brows remained furrowed, lost in thoughts no one else could hear. Chapter 11. The next day, word of the fight eventually reached my mother-in-law. She called me over, her tone still somewhat disapproving. You argued with Oscar again last night? I'm sorry, Mom. It was my fault. I thought after 13 of them, and now that you've even brought number 14 home, you'd finally grown up. I lowered my head. Oscar found out I met a guy outside. She paused, then lifted her eyes. Diana, you're getting out of line. Yes, I am. Back when you were in the hospital, I told you, our family is like this. The first thing we do after marriage is tame the daughter-in-law. In a wealthy household, there's an unspoken rule: we talk money, not love. You need to be clear on what you really want. But you also said, if I figured it out, I could leave any time. She sneered. Nobody willingly gives up wealth and luxury. I do. She gave me another look. Humph, hypocrite. You'll regret it one day. All men are the same, none of them can keep it in their pants. Seeing I said nothing, she finally stopped, then asked again, you've really thought it through? You really want to leave? Yes. Fine. I made you a promise. The compensation you're owed will be transferred to your account. Sigh. If that woman your father sees hadn't used her belly to compete for shares, and if you had been willing to have a child, Oscar wouldn't have brought home another woman so beneath our status. I couldn't help but speak up for Luna. She said she only wants to give birth to the child. She doesn't intend to marry Oscar. My mother-in-law snorted coldly. Humph. Do you think everyone's like you? They all start out saying that. Wait until she's used to the good life. You'll see if she keeps up that act. I said nothing more. After a long pause, she sighed. Forget it. If she really is that clever, once the baby's born, I'll make sure she gets some compensation. At least, that gave Luna a way out. Chapter 12. Oscar sat in his office, staring blankly at his phone. In his mind, he kept replaying that strange smile on Diana's face. Honestly, he really did like her at the beginning. Otherwise, he wouldn't have insisted on marrying her, even at the risk of having his legs broken. After marriage, they did have a rare period of sweetness. Diana wanted to work, but Oscar couldn't bear to be without her and didn't want her to suffer. So she didn't work. Instead, she would make soup at home in the morning, bring it to his office, and watch him drink it. If there was nothing going on in the evening, she'd even drive to pick him up from work. They were like any ordinary newlywed couple, clingy and affectionate. One day, Justin invited him to a private party. Since the wedding, Oscar hadn't seen his childhood friends at all. Oscar reflexively declined. Justin gave him a strange grin. Oscar, do you know what we call you now? What? Henpecked coward. Who the hell in Port City, among the rich, is afraid of his wife like you? Ha ha ha. Licking your wife's feet at home all day long. All right. Forget it. Let's just pretend we're not friends anymore. Oscar's throat burned. It had been a long time since he'd hung out with his buddies, and he hadn't known they'd been mocking him behind his back. On impulse, he lied to Diana, saying he had to work late, and went to the party anyway. And once you do it once, There's always a second time, eventually. With enough egging on from his friends, Oscar stopped bothering to hide it at all. He thought, they're right. His father had kept a mistress in the open, why couldn't he? He had wealth, status, and had already given Diana the title of wife and a grand wedding. Wasn't that enough honor for her? Why should he have to be a regular man, constantly under his wife's control? Oscar stopped hiding it. He was eventually caught red-handed by Diana. That day, after the fight over his first mistress, his mother had called him in for a short talk. She looked at him steadily and said, "I thought you were different." Different how? She didn't say, nor did she scold him like other mothers, lecturing that cheating was wrong. And so, Oscar sank deeper and deeper into that filthy road until Diana became numb to his cheating. Just like those other women he used to know, he didn't even like Luna. Her eyes were too pure, too much like Diana at 20. He only slept with Luna once, but she got pregnant, and somehow Diana found out. Instead of making a scene, Diana brought Luna home, treating her like a sister. That's when Oscar felt the panic rise. He suddenly remembered his mother, sitting silently all night after finding out about his father's affair. The next morning, her once gentle eyes were dried up. No, he didn't want Diana to turn into a wilted flower too. He loved her. He married her to spend the rest of his life with her. He wanted her to be happy. Oscar exhaled heavily, as if he'd finally found a sense of direction. He picked up his phone, ready to order flowers, when the secretary knocked and came in. "Sir, your mother sent this over." It was from his mother, a divorce agreement drafted by her lawyer. Chapter 13. Oscar stumbled home in a rage. Diana wasn't there. She had gone with Luna for a prenatal checkup. Only his mother was in the garden feeding the koi fish. Oscar stormed over furiously. "Mom, why are you forcing me to divorce Diana?" Without even looking up, she replied calmly, "Because she doesn't love you anymore." The sharp words struck Oscar like a slap. "That's not true." "It is. I can beg her. I can make her change her mind. We dated for 5 years. Married for 5 more, 10 years of love. I don't believe she could let go so easily." Only then did his mother slowly look up at him, eyes filled with mocking amusement. "You can try. Why can't she?" "Because." "Enough. The matter is settled. It's not like you're short of women. Just find another one." Oscar laughed bitterly, enraged. "Why should I listen to you?" "You don't have to." "But Oscar, do you remember what you said when your father had that woman outside?" Oscar paused. He remembered. He was 12 then. His parents, married 20 years, had fought bitterly when his father had a child with his secretary. Young Oscar had stood with arms akimbo, yelling at his dad, calling him an old pervert, a heartless traitor, blinded by lust. His father had only lowered his head and muttered quietly, "Son, you'll understand when you're older. Love is easy. Staying together is hard." Oscar had snapped back. "I'll never be like you. I'll treat my wife right. And if you fall out of love, then at the very least, I'd end it with dignity. I'd never make it ugly like you did." Ending with dignity, in marriage, in promises, meant no less than forever. Because once love fades, what's left is often pulling, clinging, and mutual torment. Oscar sat back in defeat and returned to the main house. Spending a long time alone in the garden, he watched Diana get out of the car, gently supporting Luna's now slightly swollen belly. The two were chatting about something. In the warm, golden afternoon light, Diana looked serene. She even placed a soft hand on Luna's stomach, her eyes filled with gentle anticipation. So she was really ready to leave? Oscar felt a storm rise inside him. After dinner, Diana went upstairs, asking him to spend time with the pregnant woman. Luna, clearly terrified of him, had a stiff, uneasy expression. The more Oscar looked at her, the more irritable he felt. He followed Diana upstairs and saw her on the phone. Back turned to him. Her voice was soft and soothing. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Cook? I want pork rib soup, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and maybe a potato stew. Yes. You're the best cook in the universe. It's always delicious. Okay, see you tomorrow. Oscar's chest tightened with jealousy. Diana used to cook those same homey dishes until the bar incident. She never cooked for him again. He knocked hard on the door, startling Diana into turning around. When she saw it was him, her face dropped instantly. Oscar said stiffly, "I'm hungry. Get the chef to make you a snack. I want your cooking. It's too late. You haven't cooked for me in forever." He finally blurted out the complaint he'd been bottling up. Diana paused, her cool eyes slowly darkening with sarcasm. "Didn't you say you hated the boring meals at home the most?" Chapter 14. The divorce was finally set in motion. The process moved quickly within 30 days. The certificate was issued. Although my mother-in-law had never approved of my background, she still gave me a generous settlement, considering I'd spent 10 years with Oscar. After the divorce, I moved out of his mansion. Luna clung to me, teary-eyed and reluctant. "Don't go, sister. I'm scared to be alone." I smiled at her. "Don't be. There are servants in the house." Her eyes welled with tears. But Mr. Oscar never comes home, and Madam always has that cold face. How am I supposed to live like this?" I touched her cheek. It was so soft, almost fluffy. "You should have thought about that the day you messaged me." Luna, her face went pale. "What?" "The pregnancy news. You were the one who leaked it to me, weren't you?" Luna's expression faltered, panic flashing across her face. "And no, it wasn't me." I spoke lightly. "I checked. Back then, your mother owed tens of thousands in medical bills. A kidney transplant would cost $500,000. And Oscar, well, he slept with you in a hurry and didn't pay you a cent. You probably wanted to forget it. But then you realized you were pregnant and decided to take a gamble. Congratulations. You won. You succeeded in drawing me to your door and even got me to solve the issue of your mother's treatment." Luna's eyes filled with tears. I am sorry, sister. I didn't mean to. It's fine, really. If she hadn't come to me, who knows when I would have found a reason to free myself from that swamp and get what I rightfully deserved." So every kindness I'd shown her since the day she arrived had been sincere. I waved goodbye to Luna. From now on, the one trapped in that grand, suffocating mansion was her. Still, I'd left her a way out. Whether she'd live like a quiet shadow or rise above it, that would depend on the choices she made from here on. Chapter 15. Before heading to Paris with Gabriel, I went home for a visit. My parents no longer farm. Not long ago, I paid to build them a large courtyard house in our hometown, though not as luxurious as Oscar's family estate. Life there was still quite good. When they heard I'd divorced, they stayed silent for a long time. In the end, they said nothing. It wasn't until I was leaving that my father patted my shoulder and said, "We were the ones who failed you." How could I blame them? Who doesn't wish for a better birthright? I smiled silently, then left the land I'd known my whole life and headed abroad. I invested overseas and started a company for Gabriel, giving him a 30% stake. He threw himself into the work with great enthusiasm. The company grew rapidly. 2 years in, it had gained a solid name in the industry. A major tech company took interest in the system Gabriel developed. The series of funding alone brought in over $10 million. Just like that, I officially became part of the wealthy circle. Naturally, I began to attract whispers and speculation. To avoid trouble, I had Gabriel buy me a plain band ring. When he slipped it on my finger, he chuckled. "So, are you mine now, big sis?" I smiled. For now. What comes after, I don't know. Love is no longer the center of my life. Aside from the occasional shopping trip or reading day, most of my time was spent making aggressive investments in emerging industries, powered by Gabriel's tech. One day, back in Hong Kong to negotiate a deal, I ran into an old acquaintance at a bar. Justin, still flashy, still surrounded by beautiful women, though noticeably fewer friends. He stared absently at a woman's chest, then turned his head. Our eyes met. He grinned slyly. Well, if it isn't Miss Diana herself, what brought you back? Break up with your boy toy already? I glanced behind him. His uncle, Nestor, one of the most respected elders in his family, was quietly watching him. Justin immediately lost his swagger and stood up. Nestor snorted. "Your father's too lenient with you. You're a grown man and still loitering around like this? Stirring up nonsense?" Justin bowed his head. Silent. Go home. In a few days, your dad's arranging a matchmaking dinner. If you don't want an alliance marriage, you can get out of the family. Justin's family business had been under pressure for years. Nestor finally secured my investment. So naturally, he was being cautious. I watched the scene unfold, then lost interest. Mr. Nestor, it seems nothing's changed here. I'd like to leave now. Of course. Miss Diana, I'll see you out. We left one after the other. Back at my hotel, I received a message from an unknown number. You're still so beautiful. It was the same number that had once messaged me about Oscar's affair. I smiled and replied, yes, not like you. Justin, you've aged. You egged him into keeping a mistress and then schemed to let me find out. All because you were jealous of his happy life and wanted to drag him down with you, right? Now that he's divorced, he doesn't hang out with you guys anymore? No reply after that. But I knew Oscar had already cut ties with Justin, and the decline of Justin's family business? Oscar had a hand in that too. Those 13 mistresses Justin threw at Oscar, what intentions did he have? A divorced Oscar had finally seen through it all. I heard that after Luna gave birth, she didn't cling to Oscar. She took a settlement and left Hong Kong with her mother. Oscar, now alone, turned into a picture-perfect father, either working at the company or caring for his child. Alone in that massive mansion. Did he regret it? I don't know, but I do know his family is currently arranging a new marriage for him. Before I left Hong Kong, Oscar came rushing to see me. We saw each other across the street. He had matured. When he saw me, his eyes softened, emotions welling up. He opened his mouth to speak. I raised a finger to my lips. Shoo. No apologies needed. No justifications. No more words. From young lovers to midlife strangers. Leaving without disturbing each other, that's the final grace. The car drove farther and farther. In the rearview mirror, I saw Oscar quietly wipe the corner of his eye. Funny thing is, I did the same. But life is long, and we keep moving forward.